The woods behind where I grew up on my childhood home of the Isle of Raasay was always a really beautiful, magical place to me. It was surrounded by history. On the hill on the horizon was the remains of the old mine railway. Next to that was an ancient Neolithic souterrain. There was even the childhood remains of my treehouse, which 2 decades later are still clinging on for dear life on a windswept Scots pine. And it was around January 2020 that, armed with a hand axe, I carved my way through the gigantic thickets of rhododendron and found myself up there in a small clearing and thought this would be a great place to build a house. Okay, so progress update. We now have an entranceway. There's the old tree house from yesterday. Then passageway through here. By far the worst part of the road is to cut because you can see they're slanting down in this direction, which means there's so much more of them to cut through. You can't just cut one core branch and then pull it all out. But this old area here, I used to call this the gym, now into a creepy area. And then back down this way. A lot of trees in here, hiding in the bushes. Very good quality old keg in here as well. Been sitting here about 15 years at this point. And then back out the entranceway. Now, I didn't know anything about house building back then. I still don't know anything about house building. I didn't know how I was going to afford to build a house here. I didn't know who I was going to live in this house with, but I did think this would be an amazing place to build a house. But eventually I started to upgrade from a hand axe and clippers to a chainsaw. We then managed to get our digger in there and start to pull stuff out bit by bit. The dream is to be able to bring a car up here, along, and through here. So, stacks of rhododendrons going all the way into the distance. And then the old pathway here. Built this when we were kids. All my chainsaw gear. This is some of the old remains of our dens. All the way along, this was all completely full. Old den, and then finally digger, where we're at right now. And slowly but surely we eventually managed to carve this very rough track through the ground. And eventually I managed to get my tractor up there, I managed to get my Suzuki Jimny up there. We started moving supplies and clearing an area, burning piles and piles and piles of these rhododendrons. But we want to try and burn some of these rhoddies. So we're going to try and bring the digger all the way up to here. We're going to try and start a fire here in the centre, so that way we're not getting to any of the trees. Now, what followed this was literally years of clearing and trying to prepare this ground. At the same time as I was working and trying to make YouTube videos and save up money for what could be a future house, in every spare weekend or day or afternoon that we had, we would go out there with a chainsaw and our digger and try to carve away at these rhoddies to make, well, at first a track, then a little small kind of road, and then eventually actually managing to clear areas big enough that we could see where a house could actually go. But after what seems like, and has been, years of sitting and thinking and planning and hoping and cutting and burning and building and clearing, we are finally at the point where we can start building our house. And I want to document it, maybe not even for an audience, just for myself, so that when I look back in years to come at what is our finished project, I can really look back on every single stage of it. And the last few years have been, to say the least, frustrating, because it felt like with every step forward we got, with every rhododendron we cut down, with every road that we managed to build, it didn't feel like we were actually making progress. But now we're about to start not only digging the foundations for our house, soon enough, in, well, a scary amount of weeks, a few weeks' time, we actually will have the kit for our house arriving on site. And within a few weeks of that, a literal house will rise out of the ground. I want to make sure that I have it all on camera, and I will try my best to tell you guys and show you as much of the process as possible. Building anywhere is a unique and challenging proposition. Building on a small remote Scottish island off the coast of another island is something which few people ever probably are lucky enough to have the chance to do. So I think what we'll do now, we'll go up to the house site and I'll show you what it looks like just prior to any diggers coming in and digging up to create the first beginnings of the foundation. And maybe what we'll do is actually compare and contrast to the video that I took in January of 2022, where I was sort of sketching out in my head where it might be and what it might look like. So let's head up there. So it's all a bit of a mess right now, but the idea is going to be that the house sort of begins here. So this is the back of the house. You then walk in. At the front, you've got this amazing view over towards Glamig, the hills over there. You've got the water down there in the distance. You know, it's funny, all those years ago, when I came up here and sketched out an idea on camera of where I think the house would be, there wasn't really much to go on. It was a really marshy area. We had just managed to cut our way through the bushes and make a very basic track so I could get my tractor or my digger up here. And I had kind of had this idea of maybe a house around here with the fact that the power line for the site is right behind us. But all these years later, my intuition basically has proved correct, I think, because this is still where the house is going to be. So yeah, quite amazing. I got it right all those years ago. So yeah, it feels weird to say, but we are pretty much there. It's the weekend now, it's Saturday now. Maybe the excavations might start as early as next week. The only thing I really need to do is move this crap out of the way, because some old bits of wood, this old trailer, the cement mixer that's built up here, I need to get this stuff just moved out of the way so that the guys have got plenty of space to start digging and excavating. They might have to break some rock. This ground is really solid. I couldn't really get into it using our little digger, which isn't saying much, that thing's tiny, but they might have to get the rock breaker up so that they can get deep enough for these founds. So, well, we'll find out hopefully next week. But in the meantime, I'm going to start cleaning up a little bit. That tire is well and truly done. Okay, so before it gets too dark, I thought I would show you some sketches that I have come up with of the house design paper. And in years gone by, I drew out my dream design for a house. And back then it was always a little small chalet that I could throw together myself, potentially. Obviously, back then I was a bachelor with no plans for my future. Now, obviously, I'm a married man. We want a house that we can live in for the rest of our lives. So we've gone for a bigger design, but it's still relatively small. For one thing, it's a bungalow. I don't really like two-story houses. I don't like stairs. I like everything down on one floor, nice and clean, nice and tidy. So we've gone for a bungalow design. We've got plenty of space around us. But something I mentioned earlier, this is a kit build. Very common in Scotland for new houses to be built timber frame and from kits, and increasingly common, like ours, to do wood cladding as opposed to, brick and mortar around the outside and stuff, which you can see I have beautifully rendered here on our illustration. But you might notice on the roof here, it is not slates, it is a tin roof. We're using metal sheet roofing. Very common nowadays to see a lot of new builds using basically corrugated iron. I'd love one day to make a video all about corrugated iron because I find the entire history of it absolutely fascinating. But it's around the same style and colour as the stuff that's currently on the lean-to, the shed that I have built adjacent to this container here. And it is lighter and cheaper. And as a result of being lighter and cheaper, it also means the trusses that support the roof can be thinner as well too. So it really reduces costs. And I really like the look of metal tin roofing. Makes it feel like you're living in a shed, which is just my dream more than anything. But yeah, if you look at the plan here, I've roughly drawn out here north, east, south, and west. The north face of the house, it doesn't have any windows. The main house, like the front of the house and the front door, faces west with a north-facing front door. So that's protected from the prevailing wind that comes from the southeast over the hill. Now, 1/3 or a quarter, but more like a third of the house is one big room here in the south. And that is a combined kitchen, living room, dining room area. Sometimes this can be a bit controversial. I know some people don't love big combined kitchen, living room, dining rooms. Me and my wife love them. We love everything about them. We love the idea of them. We love the fact that you're going to have basically this greenhouse of windows, light from all sides as the sun surrounds this site over the course of the day. And when you wake up in the morning, you'll come in, and in the kind of eastern corner of the room is the kitchen, where all the morning light's going to come in. It will then traverse through the dining room area. This is where I'm probably going to spend all my time, because I don't like sitting on couches, so I'd much prefer to sit in a dining room table. You'll have the lovely patio doors here as well too, so you'll get that great view of the south with Glamig and the hills in the distance. And then as it moves around here and sets in the west, the sun is going to start shining through the windows here of our living room area. It's going to be quite small, you know, a couple of couches or a couch and a couple of chairs. We're going to have our stove in here. There was actually a little bit of a controversy early last year because the Scottish Government proposed banning wood stoves, or wood and multi-fuel stoves, from new build houses, which was incredibly short-sighted. It makes sense from an environmental point of view to reduce pollution in towns and cities, but they didn't really consider the fact that up here in the Highlands and Islands, oftentimes we have severe, long-lasting power cuts, and we might need to actually heat the house outside of mains electricity. And of course, there's no gas lines or anything up here either. Luckily, that was reversed, so we can actually have our stove in there. And I think it's going to be a really nice, cozy room, but also hopefully big and bright, because this is actually going to be an open ceiling. So we're going to have kind of attic trusses that mean that you're going to be able to look up into this big, gigantic room as you walk in with all the light pouring in from every side. So I'm really excited for that. Really looking forward to it. The porch area, again, north-facing door. We'll have a little utility room with a sink and washing machines and dryers and the like in there. And then you'll enter a corridor and you'll get your 3 other rooms. Now, we'll have our master bedroom, which will have an ensuite and actually a walk-in wardrobe, which sounds very, very fancy, but something I've always wanted. Love ensuites, and I love the idea of a walk-in wardrobe where you don't have to then have just piles of clothes lying around everywhere in your bedroom. There'll be a spare bedroom, and then there'll be the 3rd spare bedroom, but in all honesty, that's going to be my office basically for working and making YouTube videos like I do. We'll have obviously a main bathroom with a bath, a shower, and a toilet. And that's basically it. That is the layout of our house. But I think the biggest luxury of all, other than our ensuite and walk-in wardrobe, is the fact that we're going to have underfloor heating throughout. I think if you're doing a new build these days, it's pretty much accepted that you're silly not to put in underfloor heating, because it's such a huge benefit for actually, relatively speaking, quite a low cost of entry. The parts and materials don't actually cost all that much, but the benefits you get out of it are just, incredible. So underfloor heating, we're using air source. There's going to be an air source heat pump located just here at the back of the porch. Air source heat pumps are basically the go-to when it comes to new builds in Scotland. I think basically every new build goes for air source heat pumps these days. My parents and a lot of people obviously were on oil and oil boilers in the past. Those things are being phased out. I would love to have solar one day integrated into the house. As part of the building regulations for Scotland as of the last few years, you have to have space for an electric car charging port, because one day I'm sure we'll probably have a plug-in hybrid or an electric car, but I'd love to have solar panels and a battery system. And because we're in a nice big open site where we've got lots of places to play around in, we could actually probably set up a ground array. So rather than having to fit the solar panels to the roof, we might be able to perfectly set them up for the most gain from the sun just somewhere in and around the house as well. So those are the future dreams if we win the lottery or have enough money to do all that. But in the short term, a large wood-clad timber frame bungalow with 3 bedrooms, a big, beautiful, open space living room, kitchen, dining room with an ensuite walk-in wardrobe in the master bedroom and a nice, well-sized bathroom with a sink and separate bath. So I am very, very excited to see if we have the money to do this. But that is roughly what it's going to look like. And next week, or in a few days' time, digger comes up and all of the foundations start getting dug. And then a month from now or less, the kit should hopefully arrive. And in that time, we need to pay them something like £70,000. So I'm going to go find out where that money comes from, and I'll see you guys in the next video. So thanks very much for watching. Bye-bye. Then passageway through here, but yeah, it's looking pretty good. But we want to try and burn some of these roddies, so we're going to try and bring the digger all the way up to here. We're going to try and start a fire here in the centre.
I'll climb up a ladder with a hammer and a nail, now nail it. Well, we worked so hard to build a little house together. In the snow or the rain or the ice cold wind, whenever. No matter what the weather, we're together.